If you've ever felt trapped in that endless top 40 loop, you know the feeling. Same songs, same sounds, same safe choices. Like the world hit repeat and lost the button to try something new. Today, I want to introduce you to a crew that's built to do the exact opposite. Change the station entirely. Bullet End Flight is based right in the heart of the 505, Albuquerque, where the green chili runs hot and the creative energy somehow runs even hotter. And when I say Bullet End Flight, I'm not talking about one single project or one single vibe. Think of it more like a parent company to a whole family of artistic misfits. People who don't fit neatly into the usual boxes, and honestly, don't want to. At the center of everything is a mission that's pretty simple to say, but not always easy to pull off. Elevate the voices that usually get talked over. The artists who get labeled too niche, or too different, or that weird one, too Albuquerque. Whatever that's supposed to mean. If you've ever heard something like that about your work, this is your invitation to pull up a chair. Because that's not a deal breaker here. That's the whole point. Bullet End Flight is built around inclusivity, creative community building, and giving underrepresented artists the megaphone they deserve. Not as a trend, not as a marketing angle, but as the core identity. It's a response to a creative world that can feel gated, filtered, and overly polished, where the most interesting voices get told to tone it down so they can be easier to sell. And here's where it gets fun. Bullet End Flight doesn't believe in staying in one lane. Because why would you? Why drive a sedan when you could take a spaceship? The whole approach is more like, what does human expression look like across every format? And then going after all of it. Let's start with music, because that's a major part of the DNA. The mindset here isn't pick a genre and stay in it. It's more like, what's the vibe, and does it hit? That can mean the spiritual charge of gospel, the late-night pulse of house music, the smooth storytelling and emotion of R&B, or even that classic country charm where life falls apart but somehow the drink is still cold. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about making something that feels alive. But it doesn't stop at music. There's a strong dedication to the spoken word too. Podcasts that get into the real stuff, not just surface-level chatter, and poetry that doesn't play nice. The kind that lands heavy, the kind that says what people avoid saying, the kind that reminds you words can still be dangerous in the best way. Then there's film and TV writing. Getting into scripts that actually have a heartbeat. Not another recycled reboot of a reboot. Not something designed by committee to offend the fewest people possible. The focus is on stories with soul. Stories with perspective. Stories that sound like they came from real lives, in real places, with real edges. And of course, the stage. Because there is nothing like live performance. It's unpredictable, it's electric, and yeah, anything can happen. And usually does. The stage is where art stops being an idea and becomes a moment, right in front of people who can feel it in real time. So why would an artist want to plug into something like this? Because being a starving artist has been romanticized for way too long, and it doesn't need to be the default. And being a lonely artist, trying to build everything by yourself, with no village, no network, no support, That's even worse. Bullet and Flight is about building that village on purpose. The goal is to take the talent that's been brewing in the Southwest, often overlooked, often underestimated, and project it outward. Not in a please notice us kind of way, but in a we're already here, and we're bringing the whole sound with us kind of way. Bullet and Flight positions itself as a launch pad, a safety net, and the hype you didn't realize you were missing. And let's be honest, a lot of people are tired of gatekeepers. Tired of needing permission. Tired of feeling like they have to sand down everything interesting about their work to be taken seriously. If that's you, this is a space that's built for finding your tribe. People who want loud, weird, real art, and who aren't afraid to make it together. If you want to get in the mix, Deombase is https://just-dominic. And if you want the visuals, you can find the YouTube channel at Just Dominic Music. Bullet and Flight Music, LLC is the company behind it all. And the invitation is open. Check out what's being built, listen to what's coming out, and if you're ready to change the station, this is a good place to start.
Waiting for you, Christ Followers Network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Oh, on Bullet and Flight Radio.
On the final night before his death, Jesus did something so strange that people have argued about its meaning for nearly 2,000 years. He had hours left, maybe 6, maybe fewer, and he knew it. He gathered his closest followers. He sat down at a table. He looked around the room. And there was someone at that table who was going to destroy him. Jesus knew who it was. He said nothing. He took bread. He took wine. And he said words that millions of people repeat to this day. But hidden inside those words is a mystery that most Christians have never once stopped to question. Why would Jesus, on the final night of his life, with hours left to speak, spend that time talking about eating his body and drinking his blood? Think about that. If you knew you had one meal left with the people you loved most, what would you say? What would you make absolutely certain they never forgot? Pause right here, just for a breath. If you had one final evening, what is the one thing you would make sure the people you love understood before you were gone? Feel that. Hold it. Then keep watching. Jesus chose bread. Jesus chose wine. Jesus chose words that 2,000 years later we are still struggling to understand. Most people have been told what the Last Supper meant, but almost nobody has been told why. And it is in that question, the why, that something extraordinary has been buried. We are not going to give you the easy answer today. We are going to follow the clues. And the clues lead somewhere most churches have never taken you. Remember the man sitting at that table who was about to betray him. We are going to come back to him again and again, because he's not a footnote. He is the key. It is the night of Passover, the most sacred night in the Jewish calendar, the night Israel remembers being freed from slavery in Egypt, the night of liberation. Jesus has arranged everything carefully, an upper room, private, deliberate, a table, bread, wine. But there is something in the room that nobody wants to name. Jesus already knows what is coming. He is known for some time, and yet he sits. He breaks bread. He passes the cup. He looks around this table of 12 men, and one of them is about to hand him over to be killed. Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. The disciples look at one another, confusion, fear, disbelief. One by one they ask, "Surely not I, Lord." Jesus does not remove Judas from the room. He lets him stay. He breaks bread with him. Why? Now, think about what is happening. Jesus has hours left to live. He is surrounded by people he has poured 3 years of his life into. He knows that by morning everything will have collapsed, and he chooses to spend those final hours like this, not writing, not issuing commands, not organizing, eating, at a table, with a betrayer in the room. The Passover setting is not accidental. Jesus was a Jewish teacher who knew these symbols like his own heartbeat. He chose this night. He chose this table. He chose these objects. And then he does something no one in that room expected. He takes the bread, he breaks it, and he says, "Take, eat. This is my body." He takes the cup, he gives thanks, and he says, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Book of Matthew chapter 26, verses 27 and 28. And then, in the Gospel of Luke, he adds the line that changes everything. "Do this in remembrance of me." Luke chapter 22, verse 19. Do this in remembrance of me. What did Jesus mean by remembrance? Not ritual, not ceremony, not commemoration. Something else. Something that almost nobody has stopped to explain. That is the question. That is the thread we are going to follow. And remember, Judas drank from this cup too. Before the night was over, he walked out into the darkness. Why was he allowed to receive the covenant before he broke it? We will come back to Judas, because every time we think we have found the answer to the Last Supper, Judas is standing in the corner, making sure we haven't. Jesus chose this symbol on the last night he had. Out of everything he could have used, he chose bread. That choice was not casual, it was desperate. Let us follow the first clue. The bread. Here is what almost everyone assumes when they see this. Bread is simple, bread is humble, bread is a symbol of basic nourishment. The bread represents Jesus' body, sacrificed for us. That is the explanation most people receive. And then they stop asking. But here is the strange thing. Jesus had other options. He could have said, "Follow me." He could have said, "Believe in me." He could have said, "Hold my teachings in your heart." He could have written something down. He could have passed a sacred object around the table. But instead, on the most important night of his life, with hours remaining, he chose one of the most visceral, physical, almost shocking images imaginable. Eat my body. Why? Why would Jesus choose eating of all things? Why not observing, or following, or believing? Why the most intimate act of physical incorporation? Taking something entirely inside yourself. Because when you eat something, it doesn't stay beside you. It doesn't remain external. It enters you. It becomes you. The bread does not stay bread. It becomes the body of the one who ate it. What if that is exactly what Jesus was pointing toward? Not the physical act, but the reality that what is truly received cannot be kept at a distance. What is truly taken in transforms the one who receives it. And Jesus had been saying this long before the Last Supper. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. John chapter 6, verse 35. Then later, even more directly, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. John chapter 6, verse 53. The crowd was appalled. Some of his own disciples left. This was too strange, too radical, too unlike anything a rabbi had ever said. But Jesus does not soften it. He leans in. Stay with the strangeness of this. Don't resolve it yet. Just sit with the question. What does it mean to truly take something in? Not just know it, not just admire it, but let it actually change the substance of who you are. The bread is evidence, not the destination. Because here is what the bread still doesn't explain. If bread represents embodiment, if bread is about taking the teaching inside, then what is the wine? And why does the cup carry a weight that bread alone cannot hold? And why, as this cup of embodiment was being passed around the table, was it passing through the hands of someone who had already decided to walk away? We are getting closer. But bread and wine together still don't solve the mystery. The solution keeps slipping just out of reach. Remember that feeling. We will need it. Because even together, bread and wine still don't explain the real mystery. And the real mystery isn't in the symbols. It's in a single word Jesus used. A word so familiar that we have walked past it for 2,000 years. Jesus is running out of time, and yet he pauses over this cup. He gives thanks. He speaks slowly. He is not rushing. Whatever this cup contains, he wants to make sure they understand it before he is gone. The second clue, the wine. In the ancient world, a shared cup was one of the most solemn acts two people could perform together. Not casual, not ceremonial in the modern sense, covenantal. When two people drank from the same cup, they were binding themselves to one another at the level of life itself. The blood is where ancient cultures understood life to live. To drink from another's cup was to say, my life is now bound to yours. What happens to you, happens to me. I am inside your story now. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. A new covenant. These are not casual words. In Jewish understanding, God's covenants were the hinge points of all of history. The covenant with Noah after the flood, the covenant with Abraham in the fire, the covenant with Moses on the mountain. Each one permanently altered the relationship between heaven and humanity. And now Jesus says, what I am initiating is a new covenant, not a revision, not an amendment, new. But a covenant requires something to change on both sides. It requires transformation, not merely agreement. The blood of the covenant in ancient tradition was not shed as punishment, it was shed as a seal. The old reality ends, a new reality begins. Something dies so that something new can live. Jesus says this is poured out for many, not kept, not preserved, poured out. What in your life has needed to be poured out? Released, emptied, let go, so that something new could have room to begin. Feel that. Don't answer it quickly. This question has weight. And now the Judas question becomes unbearable. If the wine is the seal of a new covenant, if drinking from this cup binds you into a new reality, then what was Judas sealing when he drank from it? What covenant did he receive before he walked into the night? We don't have an answer yet. That's the point. Every clue in this story creates more questions than it answers. Bread, wine, a betrayer at the table, and hours running out. Even together, bread and wine still don't explain why Jesus constructed this moment the way he did. There is still something missing, something that holds the whole thing together, and we still haven't found it. Hold on to this. The blood of the covenant seals a new reality. That phrase is going to become important very soon, because neither bread nor wine explains the strangest piece of this entire story. We have been circling it since the beginning, and now we need to go directly to it. The man in the shadows, the one who received the cup and then walked away from everything it meant. Jesus has perhaps 5 hours before the soldiers arrive. He knows this. Judas knows this. And yet they are sitting at the same table, sharing the same meal, drinking from the same cup. Here is the detail that gets passed over so quickly that most people have never once stopped to sit with it. Judas was there, not somewhere nearby, not waiting outside at the table, when the bread was broken, when the cup was passed, when Jesus spoke the words that would become the most repeated in the history of Christianity. And Jesus knew. He looked around that table, and he knew. The betrayer was eating the bread he called his body. The betrayer was drinking the cup he called his covenant. Why? Let's slow down here. Because this question deserves more than a quick answer. The standard explanation is that Judas was necessary, that the betrayal had to happen for prophecy to be fulfilled, that Judas was a piece on the cosmic chessboard. But that explanation has always left something hollow, because it treats Judas as a mechanism, and the Gospels treat Judas as a man. Watch what Jesus does at this table. He does not condemn Judas. He does not expose him publicly. He does not curse him. He says only, what you are about to do quickly. Do quickly. There's a mercy hidden in those words that almost nobody notices. Jesus releases Judas. He does not chase. He does not hold. He does not rage. He lets him go. And in the moment Judas walks out into the night, Jesus says something that has haunted theologians ever since. Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. Now. Not after the cross, not after the resurrection. The moment Judas leaves the room, glorification begins. What was Jesus teaching about betrayal? Was he teaching that darkness cannot stop the covenant? Was he teaching that even the one who walks away is still offered the bread, still offered the cup, because the invitation was never based on deserving? Or was he teaching something about us? Sit with this question for just a moment before we move on. Is there a part of you that has been to the table, that has heard the teaching, felt the truth, tasted something real, and still keeps walking back out into the night? Not because you don't believe, but because something in you hasn't fully received what is being offered. Here is the myth flip most people miss. Judas is not a warning about what happens when we reject Jesus. Judas is a mirror. He shows us the part of every human heart that can sit at the most sacred table in history, and still choose the familiar darkness over the uncomfortable light. And now we have 3 clues. Bread, the teaching that must be taken inside. Wine, the covenant that seals a new reality. Betrayal, the shadow at the table that Jesus neither removes nor condemns. And still. We have not answered the central question. Because the mystery does not live in the symbols, and it doesn't live in Judas, it lives in one word. A word Jesus chose very deliberately, a word so simple we have walked past it for 2,000 years. Hold on. We are almost there. And remember, while this is happening, the clock is running. Dawn is coming. The soldiers are assembling. Everything at this table is being said against that backdrop. Every word Jesus speaks, he speaks knowing it may be one of his last, which means the word Jesus chose to anchor his final teaching was not chosen casually. It was chosen with everything on the line. And when you understand what that word actually means, the entire Last Supper collapses into a single devastating insight. In the story, dawn is coming. In your life, something is also approaching. Stay with us. You are probably noticing something by now. This is not the version of the Last Supper most people have heard. Most people are told what happened at that table. Very few are ever asked what it meant. And fewer still are ever invited to ask, what does it mean for you? If something in this conversation is waking something up, if some part of you recognizes that there is more beneath the surface of what you were taught, you are not alone. This channel exists for exactly that recognition. Every week we go beneath the surface of the Gospels, the ancient texts, the wisdom that was carefully buried, and we bring it into the light. If this is the path you have been looking for, subscribe now. Leave these 4 sacred words in the comments section. I am waking up, not as a gesture, as a declaration. And declarations change things. Now, let's follow the final clue, the one that makes everything else make sense. The word is remembrance. 4 words. Do this in remembrance of me. In modern English, remembrance has become small. We use it to mean, don't forget. Hold this in your mind. Keep the memory alive. But in the ancient world, remembrance meant something incomparably deeper. The Greek word used in Luke is anamnesis. Anamnesis. Anamnesis doesn't mean recall. It literally means unforgetting. Not try to remember, but stop forgetting. In the Platonic tradition, anamnesis described the idea that the soul already knows the truth, that wisdom is not something we acquire from the outside, it is something we recover from within, not new knowledge. Ancient recognition. Now read the words of Jesus again with that lens. Do this in remembrance of me. He is not saying perform this ceremony so you don't forget the night I was arrested. He is saying do this so that you remember what I am. Do this so that you remember what I have shown you is real. Do this so that you stop forgetting what has always been true. And this is the moment where most people think they have the answer. Ah, they say, I understand now. The Last Supper was about inner experience, not outer ritual. Bread and wine are metaphors. Jesus was pointing us inward. That's the hidden meaning. Most people stop there. Most sermons stop there. Most books stop there. And if they are right, if that is all Jesus meant, then the Last Supper becomes one of the strangest, most inexplicable moments in the entire Bible, because it doesn't explain the blood, it doesn't explain the covenant, it doesn't explain Judas at the table, and it doesn't explain why Jesus, with hours remaining, chose this of all things. If it were simply remember the inner meaning, Jesus could have said that. He was not subtle when he wanted to be direct, so something is still missing. If remembrance isn't simply about inner spiritual experience, then what is the deeper reality that Jesus was asking them to remember, and why would he need bread and wine to say it? Here is the contradiction that the easy answer doesn't resolve. If anamnesis is about recovering what the soul already knows, if the kingdom is already within, if the truth is already there to be remembered, then why the bread? Why the wine? Why the covenant? Why not simply say, be still and remember? The physical symbols are doing something that words alone cannot do, and understanding what that something is requires us to look at the teaching that the Last Supper was always meant to complete. And somewhere in the answer to that question, Judas is still waiting, because a man who received the bread and the wine and still chose to betray tells us something about what remembrance requires that no theology has ever fully explained. Jesus has perhaps 4 hours left. The disciples don't know this, but he does. What he is about to reveal is not theory. It is what he has given his life to show them. And the teaching he is completing, the thread the Last Supper was always tied to, is the teaching that most changes everything. The one hiding in plain sight throughout all 3 years of his ministry. The one almost nobody connects to this table. The Last Supper did not introduce something new. This is the revelation that changes the entire video. The Last Supper was the culmination, the final concentrated distillation of everything Jesus had taught across his entire ministry. For 3 years he had been pointing to one reality over and over, in parables and miracles, in confrontations with religious leaders, in quiet conversations with desperate people who left transformed. The same reality, always. The kingdom of God is not coming with things that can be observed, nor will they say, look, here it is, or there it is, for in fact the kingdom of God is within you. Within you, not above you. Not coming someday, not behind a veil, not accessible only through the right priest with the right ritual. Within, now, you. And he didn't only say it once. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit. Abide in me, and I in them. Not worship from a distance, not obedience to an external authority. Union, living, breathing, mutual indwelling. On that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. You are in me, and I am in you. This is not a metaphor for think about Jesus sometimes. This is the language of transformation, of union, of what mystics across every tradition have recognized as divine indwelling. And at the Last Supper, the bread said, take this reality inside you. Don't admire it from a distance. Let it become you. The wine said, you are now bound to this reality, not by obligation, but by a love that is poured out. And the remembrance said, when life makes the kingdom feel distant, when the noise of the world drowns out the truth, when fear convinces you that God is far away. Do this. Come back, unforget. What would it mean for you, right now today, to abide, not believe, not admire from a safe distance, but abide, to let the living reality of Christ actually dwell inside you the way bread becomes flesh? We are almost at the answer. But the final piece requires us to ask a question that goes deeper than theology. It requires us to ask what was lost and why. And that question is going to make some people uncomfortable. If this was what Jesus was teaching, if the Last Supper was always about union, embodiment, and the living kingdom within, then why does so little of Christianity look like this? What happened to the deeper meaning? And who or what decided the outer ceremony was enough? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is something more uncomfortable than a conspiracy. It is a pattern that runs through every tradition, including yours. The ritual is not the problem. Say that again, slowly, so this isn't heard as hostility. The ritual's not the problem. The ritual was built to carry something forward, and for many people across many centuries it has. Bread and wine and an ancient prayer have been the doorway back for millions of human souls. But here is the question that nobody in a church service tends to ask. What if the church preserved the ritual perfectly, while slowly forgetting the experience the ritual was designed to produce? Not through malice, not through conspiracy, through something more ordinary and more heartbreaking than either. Through the simple, inevitable process by which a living fire becomes ashes. A living reality becomes a teaching becomes a practice becomes a ceremony becomes an institution, and an institution over time tends to optimize for its own continuation, not for the living experience that created it. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the fluid, spirit-led communities around Jesus were formalizing. Leaders emerged, hierarchies formed, and some of the earliest debates in early Christianity were specifically about who has the authority to administer communion, not what does it mean, who controls it. And in that shift, the shift from meaning to control, the mystery moved to the margins. The outer form remained. The ceremony survived. But the inner experience it was designed to produce, the anamnesis, the unforgetting, the living encounter with the kingdom within, that became the territory of mystics and heretics. The ones who said, there must be more. The ones who said, the ceremony is pointing at something. I want to find what it's pointing at. The ones who kept asking the question the institution had quietly stopped asking. Has your own experience of faith ever felt like this? Like you were going through the motions of something that was once alive, but the life had quietly left? Like the ceremony was real, but you were watching it from the outside, waiting for the moment when it would actually move you, and it didn't come. If you felt that, you were not broken. You were noticing something true. And here is the Judas question we have been carrying through this entire video. What if the disciples who turned the living mystery into a managed ceremony were doing something Judas did? Not betraying Jesus with a kiss, but with familiarity, sitting at the table, going through the motions, and forgetting to actually receive what was being offered. Is it possible to preserve the symbol perfectly, and lose the reality the symbol was pointing to? And if so, what does it take to find it again? The answer to that question is not about the institution, it's about you. Specifically. And it's the question this entire video has been building toward, because for 2,000 years we have asked what the disciples understood, what the theologians concluded, what the councils decided. We have almost never asked the more uncomfortable question, the one that turns the entire story around and aims it directly at us. In the story, dawn was coming for Jesus. He had hours left. For you, the question is different. Not how much time did he have, but how much time are you spending in the wrong kind of forgetting? For 2,000 years, people have debated what happened at that table. Theologians have argued. Councils have deliberated. Denominations have split over the precise meaning of the bread and the wine. Wars have been fought. People have been burned. And still, the question hangs unanswered. But maybe the real question was never about what they understood at that table. The real question is whether we do. You. Right now. Watching this. Because here is what Jesus was revealing at that table. You are always in a communion with something. You are always absorbing something into the core of who you are. You are always taking in what you give your attention to, your love to, your hours to. The bread you eat, spiritually speaking, is what you let shape you. The cup you drink from is the covenant you are actually living under. The question Jesus was asking was not liturgical, it was ontological. What kind of reality are you nourishing yourself with? Fear or love? Scarcity or abundance? The voice that says you are unworthy, or the voice that says you are a child of God? The kingdom of the world, or the kingdom within? And the covenant, what covenant are you living under? What agreement have you made, consciously or not, about who you are? About whether the kingdom is available to you, about whether you have to earn your way back to the divine. Because the covenant Jesus was sealing at that table did not say, try harder. It did not say, come back when you are worthy. It did not say, you will earn the kingdom eventually. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. On their hearts, not on stone tablets, not in a book of laws, on their hearts, inside, already, now. Right now, before we reach the final revelation, ask yourself this, and let it land all the way. What have you forgotten? What reality did you once feel? In a moment of prayer, of stillness, of grief, of awe, that you have allowed to be buried? What truth has been quietly trying to surface that the noise of life has drowned out? That is what Jesus was asking. Not, perform this ceremony in my honor. Not, remember the night of my arrest. But remember, return, come back to what you already know is real. In the story, this is the moment the night ends. The soldiers are coming. The cross is hours away. Jesus spent his final free evening like this, at a table, with bread and wine and a betrayer, speaking words about remembrance. That choice was not random. That choice was everything. And so we reach the end. What was Jesus actually trying to give his disciples at the Last Supper? He was not giving them a ritual. He was not giving them a ceremony to perform in his absence. He was giving them a way back, a doorway made of bread and wine and remembrance that they could walk through anytime the world convinced them the kingdom was far away. Anytime fear made the presence of God feel distant, anytime life made them forget what they had touched in his presence. The bread said, let this be inside you. The wine said, you are bound to something that cannot be broken. And the remembrance said, you already know the way home. Stop forgetting. But here is the last thing. The thing that makes this more than a fascinating interpretation. What if Jesus wasn't asking them to remember an event? What if he was asking them to remember a reality? A reality he spent his entire life pointing toward. Maybe Jesus never feared that his followers would forget him. Maybe he feared they would forget what he came to show them. The kingdom of God is within you. The living presence of the divine is not absent. It has never left. It cannot leave. You simply, sometimes, forget. And the bread, the wine, the covenant, the remembrance, the table in the upper room, all of it was a way back. Jesus was not starting a religion. He was building a door. And that door is still standing, right now, for you. Thank you for walking through this with us, not casually, seriously, with your full attention and your full heart. Most people scroll past this conversation. Some watch it like information, but you stayed, and that means something. If you want to take what we've explored today beyond information, if you want to move these teachings from ideas in your mind into lived experience in your life, we have created something called the Sacred Scrolls. The Sacred Scrolls are guided practices, invitations to sit with these truths in stillness, to let them move from head to heart, from knowing to being. The link is in the description below and in the pinned comment. And if you are someone who loves Jesus, who has never stopped loving Jesus, but who walked away from the religion without knowing where to go, you belong in the Esoteric Path community on Facebook, not for casual browsers, not for religious debate, for serious seekers who have tasted something real and refuse to settle for less. The link is in the description. Before you leave, wherever you are right now, place your hands open on your lap, take one breath, let it out slowly, and hear this. You are not someone who stumbled onto this video by accident. You are someone who has been remembering, slowly, imperfectly. In the gaps between the noise of ordinary life, your soul has been trying to recover something. The kingdom is not far. It is within you. It has always been within you. And the path back is the path of remembrance, not religious performance, not doctrinal perfection, not having all the answers. Just this, remembering, again, as many times as it takes.
Well, the times they are a-changing fast. Some old truths just built to last. We're the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Yeah, the Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio. Christ following network on Bullet and Flight Radio.
Bullet and Flight, fly. Bullet and Flight, fly. Bullet and Flight, Bullet and Flight, Bullet and Flight, fly. Bullet and Flight.